So welcome back after the lunch, and we will be having next session again by Dr. Jaswinder Singh, who will be discussing on life cycle assessment of bioethanol production from various feedstock, comparative analysis of first and second generation biomass. So let's welcome Dr. Jaswinder again.
Thank you, Professor Singh, and I welcome back to you in afternoon session. So, as Professor Singh has told you, my next presentation is on life cycle assessment of bioethanol production from various feedstocks. Here we will comparatively evaluate first and second generation feedstocks. Sorry. Let us first discuss what is the context setting of these kind of studies. Uh, are you aware of United Nations framework for climate change? They hold their convention every year uh, in the last quarter of year, and then it is the convention which invites the participants from various countries. So it is basically called COP, Conference of Participants. So during the 21st COP, which was held in Paris in December 2015, globally all the countries agreed to provide to chalk out and disclose their intended national determined contribution to show their commitment towards the cleaner environment in their country. So here in this slide we can see India's INDC commitment. So these are the salient features of this commitment. India is committed to put forward the and further propagate healthy and sustainable way of living, and then to adopt climate friendly fuels and other cleaner technologies. In COP21, it was committed by India in INDC that it will reduce the emission intensity of its GDP by 33 to 35% by 2030 from 2005 level. But during COP26 held in 2021, it was 26th COP, our Prime Minister said that we will intensify our environmental efforts, and then some numbers they revised. So this number was revised from 35 to 45%, and in earlier INDC it was to achieve about 40% cumulative electric power installed capacity from the renewable energy. Then in COP26, our Prime Minister Modi ji said that we will put our efforts under Panchamrit, and we will intensify our environmental efforts, and then this number was also increased from 40 to 50% to be more committed towards the environment. So these are other salient features. It is no fun in reading each and every point. I think by now you might have read the whole slide, because normally presentation speed is slow and reading speed is more. What is India's energy versus environment scenario? In India, rather it is worldwide phenomena that fossil fuels are the largest contributor to the energy basket, and in India it is basically with the inclusion of coal energy. These are the fossil fuels which contribute most in the energy basket. Now with passage of time, with all these INDC commitments, renewable sources are increasing their share in energy mix, And now to achieve our goals which we have committed, it becomes imperative for energy planners to identify cost effective alternate energy sources for exploitation. And the bottom line is that explicit or implicit cost of carbon determines the rate of fossil fuel. And fossil fuels, due to this reason, sorry, due to their largest contribution, they have largest contribution in the CO2 emissions also. These are the chart as well as data for year-wise CO2 emission from 2000 to 2020, 22. This data has been compiled by IEA and it is open license, so I am displaying it on this slide. So here you can see that from the year 2000 to 2022, our CO2 emission from fuel combustion in India has increased from 891 to almost 2500 uh, million tons of CO2. This graph shows sector-wise evolution of CO2 emission in India. Here also you can see that the largest contributor is electricity and heat production, and it is followed by the transport sector. And here also you can see, like this curve, there was a dip during 2020 due to COVID. There were lockdowns, industries were shut, transport impact was less. So that was the only year when this curve showed a dip, and same is with this trend also. Otherwise, it is continuously increasing. Now, what is the burden of the transport sector in Indian scenario? Urban transport is by and large dominated by motor vehicles, and if you look at this curve, with passage of time, number of two wheelers which are being sold is decreasing and the number of four wheelers is increasing. It means more carbon footprint in the environment. So in a nutshell, we can say that mostly transport sector is dependent on the liquid fossil fuels. So we need to find out some alternate for this, because it is putting second largest CO2 emission burden in environment. And for fossil fuels also, transport accounts for nearly one third of total crude oil which is imported. And the import of crude oil again puts financial burdens also on India. And CO2 emission is another driving force. So with all these reasons, it becomes imperative that we should carry out our research to replace these fossil fuels, because fossil fuels otherwise also are not going to last. Someday they will be coming to an end, so before that we need to find out some alternate. So the drive for development of cleaner fuels as well as pressure on fossil fuels due to their limited storage, biofuels are identified to provide solution to these problems, and they can significantly reduce the carbon footprint. And in this area, bioethanol has been identified as a renewable fuel produced from biomass feedstock. Only thing is we have constraints for the feedstocks for more and more bioethanol production. And other driving force is alternate uses of bioethanol other than fuel. So in order to sustainably produce our bioethanol, we need to carry out LCA of the various processes. We have to evaluate various feedstocks to identify most sustainable feedstocks, and of course the quantum of feedstock is also important. So the quantity of feedstocks, availability of feedstocks, along with the carbon footprint of the whole process, that will determine the sustainability of our end product, that is bioethanol. It can give us some ground to identify and implement most environmentally sustainable process. So when we talk of feedstocks, type of feedstocks are first, second, third and fourth generation. First generation feedstocks are basically edible feedstocks. If you say corn, if you say sugarcane, all these are first generation feedstocks because their alternate use is in food also. Now, by utilizing these feedstocks, we cannot put more and more burden on the food sector because that is also required for sustainable human health, human survival. You have to provide food to all. So we resort to second generation feedstocks, which are non-edible biomass and some wastes. For example, in this presentation, I have covered corn stover, which is left after removal of corn, then forest residues, wheat straw, switchgrass, and municipal solid waste. Sorry. Now, all these second generation feedstocks are either waste or not fit for human consumption. So, if we can produce bioethanol from these feedstocks, it is going to be going to help us to meet another sustainable goal, which is of food for all in human society. Then third generation feedstocks are there, which covers aquatic crops like algae, microalgae, some seaweed plants and such feedstocks. And then one step ahead is fourth generation, which are genetically engineered biomass. It is still in experimental phase because by this we are trying to develop those feedstocks to after modification, their modification genetically, so that they can yield more and more bioethanol. So fourth generation feedstocks are still in experimental stage. However, third generation feedstocks are also being tried, but it is also not at large commercial scale. So normally we have to focus on first and second generation. LCA, as I have already defined in my morning lecture, basically it is an industrial environmental management approach, and this technique attempts to identify, quantify in terms of impacts, and then exemplify various potential environmental impacts associated with all stages of the life cycle of a product. I hope this identify, quantify and exemplify is clear. Identification is up to inventory level, then from inventory we quantify, and then after quantification we convert it to various impacts and exemplify that what environmental emissions can be assigned to which environmental impact. What is the aim of LCA? It is to understand the flow of matter and energy uh, during the life cycle of a process or product manufacturing. Then to find out what are the environmentally critical points or hot spots and prevent or eliminate them using other material or other systems, or whatever method we can adopt, means we can uh, according to our need we can optimize them. Like in case of bioethanol, we can start with 10% blending into gasoline, 20% blending into gasoline, and if we have sufficient storage of our feedstocks and we can produce more and more ethanol, we can increase the uh, share of bioethanol in our gasoline fuel. So for all these combinations, LCA is a very good tool to give you the clear picture of that scenario, whatever you are trying. So if we look at the life cycle of biofuel production, it is your biomass feedstock. You will cultivate your feedstock if it is first generation or some of the second generation feedstocks. Then it need to be transported, and you need to prepare the feed by crushing it or resizing it, and then you will subject it to fermentation process and different other auxiliary processes to convert it to fuel. Then fuel can be used in vehicles, and then it comes the end of life management. You have to manage whatever harmful emissions or whatever wastes are being generated. So that waste management is also part of your life cycle of fuel production. But normally when we carry out life cycle assessment of biofuels, we normally stop at this level. So when we stop at this level, it is from cradle to gate. Gate means the factory gate where you have finished fuel, and now it is ready to be sent to market for use and application. Why we are mostly resorting to cradle to gate analysis? Because beyond that we have certain combinations. So although it is part of life cycle assessment, but then you have to make different scenarios in the shape of blending or in the shape of their limited applications depending upon the quantity of your bioethanol produced or available. So normally for life cycle assessment of biofuels, we carry out cradle to gate analysis. These are the 4 stages of life cycle assessment. Quickly, if we look at it, first of all, you need to define your goal and scope, and this will define your system boundaries also, that what is the basically domain of your analysis, which area you are going to focus. Then you have to collect the data to make the inventory calculations, modeling and analysis. Then finally you move to third stage, that is impact assessment. You analyze inputs, outputs using category indicators. According to your need and application, you can either group or normalize or weigh the results, as we discussed in the morning lecture. Then final stage is interpretation. Now you have to interpret the indicator data and draw your own conclusions, that now what next, what modification we will be making to our process, so that we can minimize the environmental impact for the overall process. Because our ultimate aim is to develop a sustainable process. LCA will help us to identify the hot spots. So then we will make changes in those hot spots, so that overall we have a sustainable process. So with all these available data, when you have a complete picture, LCA will help you in integrated decision making by identifying the trade-offs among alternate process pathways. Then it will help you to identify the opportunities for improvement in process, because then you can find out which are the typical stages where you are putting more environmental burdens. Then making a trade-off in those stages, you can have overall least impact. And these results also help you to carry out the risk analysis of process. So let us start from first stage, goal and scope definition. What will help you to find your goal? You have to identify which are the typical processes in production of bioethanol. So in cradle to gate process, main stages are your field operations in the shape of cultivation and harvesting. Then pre-processing, that is resizing and storage, and in some cases you need to dry your biomass for further processing. You have to grind it for resizing. Then you come to biorefinery, and I think about biorefinery, professor has discussed in detail in the previous lecture. Now these pathways vary by feedstock, and with the MSW we will require minimal pre-processing. Now let us have a look at these feedstock one by one. First of all, let us start with corn conversion to ethanol. So stages of corn conversion to ethanol are feed preparation and planting its seed. Then for this you need tillage operation. It may be intensive, reduced or minimum depending upon the prime requirement of your soil. Then according to soil nutrient availability, you have to supply fertilizers. Then pesticides are to be used to eliminate any harmful organism to the product. Now you come to the growing stage. While growing, plants will transform atmospheric carbon dioxide into energy containing hydrocarbons. Sorry. Basically, this is the biggest advantage of biofuels. Some of the carbon dioxide you are already mitigating during this stage of life cycle of biofuel production. So your carbon dioxide sequestration starts right from here itself, and rest of the things are in addition to that. Your emissions are further less. Now we consider a single pass harvesting operation. Only once you are cultivating your sugarcane, or sorry, here we are trying corn. Now you have to separate corn from stover. Then this corn will be transported to storage facility after drying, grinding and all pre-operations. Then finally it is delivered to dry mill facility to convert to ethanol. Now the rest of the process for conversion is very clear to you because all of you are microbiologists. When you convert corn to ethanol, apart from ethanol, one distiller's dried grain with soluble is produced as byproduct, and it is also merchandisable product because 1 kg of DDGS may substitute almost 0.94 or 0.95 kg of corn grains or 0.303 kg of soya meals and 0.025 kg of urea for energy generation. So apart from your primary product ethanol, you are getting some valuable byproducts also. When we carry out whole life cycle assessment, normally we have to allocate these byproducts with the overall emissions which we are releasing to environment. Now that is another detailed subject, a detailed stage in LCA, and that we typically term as allocation by substitution or allocation by process expansion. When we talk of process expansion means we have envisaged one life cycle of our biofuel production. Now during that we will be estimating the overall emissions, but all those overall emissions are not cannot be attributed to alone ethanol. Along with ethanol, some byproducts are also there. So then what we do, we have certain methods to allocate our emissions. Either we can allocate them by some physical quantity like mass, but normally that is avoided. Rather we would expand our process. We will see that how much valuable products we are having. Now how will it help? As we pointed out that 1 kg of DDGS may substitute certain amount of other things. Now think of the scenario when you had to produce that much amount of these bioproducts by their parent process. That is, one more process could have been taken place to obtain this much of this product. That process again will be associated with some emissions. So what you can do, whatever total emissions have been produced in this process, that is corn conversion to bioethanol, you will allocate the whole, you will calculate the whole impacts, then subtract these emissions which otherwise could have been produced if you wanted to get these products. So this emission can be subtracted from your overall emission, and that is your environmental saving. I hope you could understand what I said. If you have doubt, you can ask. Is it clear? Okay, let me take another example. Suppose we do not consider this DDGS. In subsequent feedstocks, that scenario will also come. There I will skip it. I will explain here itself. Suppose some of the biomass you are using for power generation, and some X units of power is generated out of that waste biomass apart from ethanol. Now, if you could have produced X kilowatt of power by coal, it would be associated with some carbon dioxide. Now, that carbon dioxide you have saved by generating power here. So, from these overall emissions, you can subtract those emissions, and then you can demonstrate that this process is also saving on the power generation up to this extent. So, that we say it is allocation by substitution, and it gives you not only the precise emission impacts, but it also helps you to make decision that by adopting to this process, we are generating some amount of power also in addition to bioethanol. Then that decision is wise decision. Now it is clear. Okay, let us move to other this second generation feedstocks start from corn stover, because stover is of no edible use and it is byproduct of corn production, and almost 31.5% of harvested corn is in the form of stover. So after the corn is separated, you can just dry these size and this stover, and then you can bale it for transportation and send it to biorefinery for biochemical conversion to make bioethanol. Sorry. Now our third feedstock is forest residue. Forest residue is basically whatever is left after logging operation carried out on the trees, because after you log it, you will be getting some uh, wood chips, other things, like means wood waste will be there, that is of not primary use. Means logs can be converted to planks and then sent for furniture making or some other uses, but this waste can be collected and subjected to biochemical conversion. Basically, you might be remembering in the morning lecture, uh, Professor Sir highlighted that process also, how to make bioethanol from the wood chips. So it is basically thermochemical conversion, and then through this indirect gasification, and then you get the syngas, and that can be converted to alcohol, and it is basically mixed alcohol synthesis process. Along with ethanol, you get some other alcohols also, like methanol, and I think some amount of butanol is also produced. So this process is also associated with mixed alcohols and sulfur as merchandisable co-products. And in the similar way as I described you in the previous slide, this also can help you to reduce your environmental burden of main process. Then for switchgrass, again you have to tillage, planting and irrigation, because you have to cultivate the switchgrass. Unlike the wood chips, it will not be available to you directly, and it will require all the things which are required for this cultivation, fertilization, and pesticide application, and so on. Then again, here also some carbon dioxide itself is sequestrated during the cultivation and harvesting process. Then mowing and collection operation are to be conducted to collect your feedstock and send it to biorefinery for ethanol conversion. Then same is the wheat straw. Wheat straw also requires production of wheat. Here your wheat will be main product, this straw will be the byproduct, and this will be baled and transported to storage facility where it is dried, ground and stored, and finally it will be transported to biorefinery facility to convert it to ethanol. And then conversion process is similar for corn stover and switchgrass and wheat straw also. And I think this you are knowing very well that main processes are your acid pre-treatment, enzymatic hydrolysis and fermentation to convert these feedstocks. Typically we term them as lignocellulosic feedstocks for bioethanol. Finally, for MSW, you do not need very big operations. Only thing is you have to collect it, then transport it to processing facility. Then there it is sorted, recovered to recover valuable metals and some other things which can directly be used as fuel, typically termed as refuse derived fuels, RDF. We separate all those things, and whatever is remaining, that is called MSW fluff. So to carry out this sorting processing, you need electricity. Then this fluff is shredded and separated. Cellulose hydrolysis is carried out on that. Solid liquid separation and flash distillation by gravity pressure vessel, and then finally it is fermented to get bioethanol. Other auxiliary steps are held to treat co-products and byproducts. Among these products, it is essential to highlight the capture of carbon dioxide. This is very good mean of carbon capture also. Now these are the all feedstocks which we will be evaluating with the help of life cycle assessment. Now see what will happen. Whatever stages we have seen in previous slides, this will form your life cycle up to production stage. So at each stage, right from the harvesting of your bio crops, be it corn or switchgrass or other things like wheat straw, except for stover. Stover is, can be treated as including only transportation and separation step. The rest of the things which are to be cultivated, they will require your fertilizer impact also, your pesticides impact also. If there is any land use change, that also need to be included in that. So based on this, you will fix your goal and scope. So goal of this study which we are now going to look into, it is to conduct a comparative LCA of bioethanol production from cradle to gate using all these feedstocks which we have discussed so far. Among these feedstocks, corn grain is the only selected first generation feedstock. Rest of these are non-edible or waste products. So they are second generation. Now, when we talk of scope, there are two important reasons for choosing these feedstocks. To compare the environmental impact between first generation and second generation biofuel sources, and then because these 2G feedstocks are available worldwide, with some regions being more abundant than other, it makes sense to carry out such study, particularly when we have this vision that almost all these feedstocks are globally available. When we are going to calculate our life cycle inventory, we will prefer to have the global data to make it globally applicable. Now, if we look at the life cycle inventory analysis, mostly foreground data for LCI has been obtained from different studies available in literature. I have quoted two literature sources here. When we say foreground and background data, foreground data is basically the data of your actual plant operation. What quantity of feed and what quantity of other required chemicals or whatever is there in terms of material, and how much energy to that defined quantity of feedstock you are putting into your process. So all those things are available directly with you because you are operating the plant. So all that data we term as foreground data in life cycle inventory analysis, and rest of the things like data of your soil emissions, data of your fertilizer emissions, sorry, or whatever background processes are there which are not under your direct control, because you can control only your feedstock, its shredding, energy required for that, and your chemicals and your lab. Apart from that, production of fertilizer, production of pesticide, whatever emissions according to soil type are being put into the environment, and how much land you are using as natural resource. So that all is background data, and that is obtained from some standard database. In this case, we have used EcoInvent 3.6 database. Now, most of the background data used in literature was based on a specific location. I will tell you what was the reason for that. Sorry. In EcoInvent, we do not have land use data or fertilization data and soil type data for all the reasons. Either it is on the globally average data or in the form of some specific locations data. So as I told you, we have used these two papers as as the source of foreground data. So whatever was the geographical location mentioned in these papers, some of the background data has been acquired from EcoInvent for that region only, and rest of the data has been taken as from global data to make this study globally implementable. These are the key categories which we have evaluated: climate change, long and short term, then water scarcity and eutrophication, biodiversity impacts, and resource depletion. And here we have used impact word plus midpoint version 1.02 impact assessment method. So let us come to the comparative results which we obtained in first versus second generation. Here I talked about normalization in the morning. Here what we have done, we have taken the largest impact, that is of corn dry mill, which is first generation feedstock. It has got the maximum impact, so we have normalized all the impacts in respect of this. Taking it as 100, we have determined that what are the normalized impact for all other feedstocks. So these are the all feedstocks which we have taken, and here you can see that in case of this land transformation, biodiversity and land occupation, some of the impacts are negative. Now negative impact means, instead of putting burden on the environment, if you are normalizing your impacts, you are rather gaining on the environmental impacts as compared to first generation feedstock, which are still your maximum in that. So here you can see that almost all the second generation feedstocks are having much less environmental impact in terms of all the category indicators, midpoint indicators. Here MSW is having the least impact. If you see, it is a black one, and in some categories you can see it is negative also. And rest of the feedstocks are also having much less impact as compared to first generation feedstock. So not only due to our food requirement, but environmentally also, it is wise to resort to the second generation feedstocks rather than first generation. Now, to come to next comparison, let us have a look at system boundaries of various routes. We have discussed in detail earlier. Basically, we can divide it into three compartments. First is your field operations, then these are your processing operations, and these are your biorefinery facility operations. Now, these are the various stages of your life cycle of biofuel or of these feedstocks conversion to bioethanol. And let us see what do our results speak about the different stages. Now here you can see that this first bar everywhere is of this corn, which is our first generation feedstock. So you can see that almost 50% of the impact is attributed to your field operations. Whereas in second generation feedstocks, although field operation is the largest contributor, but it is much less as compared to your corn feedstock. And in case of your MSW, if you look at this last bar, everywhere means in all the categories, because you can see that here you do not have any pre-processing steps. Everything is being done at your processing stage and then to your biorefinery. Rather, it is everything is being done at the biorefinery facility. Means everything you can do there itself. So due to this reason, here your 100% impacts are attributed to that stage only. Whole bar is blue. Then among other second generation feedstocks, switchgrass and wheat straw make small contribution from field operation, and corn, stover and forest residue have relatively high, you can see. But these two higher impacts also are much less as compared to your first generation feedstock, which is almost 50% everywhere. So these are the typical results which we have obtained from our life cycle assessment when we carried out on all these processes by identifying our system boundaries for each of these feedstock, and then setting our goal and scope, and then carried out impact assessment using impact plus impact assessment method, and obtained our results. And this is basically our fourth stage where we interpret our results. These are our inferences after looking at the impact assessment. So key findings, you can say that first generation feedstocks, that is corn, is having higher environmental and resource impacts. Second generation are sustainable with lower emission and land use. And if we resort to bioethanol production by waste-based feedstock, those will be more sustainable. Due to two reasons. One is our impact is less, our processes reduce the land use, and otherwise also in increasing population scenario, waste generation will always increase. So you will have no scarcity of your waste or feedstock, and you can rely on those sources. So this is how life cycle assessment helps us to make our decisions by comparing different scenarios. Here our scenario was first generation feedstock for bioethanol production, and identifying what are the individual impacts and during the each stage of life cycle. So we can conclude from this study that impact assessment in terms of life cycle impact, highest impact in all categories is from bioethanol production from first generation feedstock corn, and significant portion of this impact was contributed by the field operations. That was our another interpretation. Now you can appreciate, if you put a little attention, that this is the reason, because that is a stage where a lot of chemicals also you are putting in, like fertilizers and pesticides. So all these chemicals will not only be associated with the emissions during their manufacturing or production, but also when you put it in the earth, they release a lot of greenhouse gases. So this is the reason why it is most at the field operations. So here if you look at overall picture, MSW was found to have least impact in most categories and had negative values for impact on biodiversity and freshwater eutrophication. That is obvious because you are not using any land resources. Now what are the future directions based on this LCA? It is important that using first generation feedstock to produce ethanol significantly impacts the ecosystem quality, human health and resource depletion. So we have to look for the means by which we can reduce this. Then production of bioethanol from MSW also has byproducts formed such as surplus electricity, heat and water, which will contribute significantly to reduce the environmental impact as they make the overall process circular. So future work can be done to explore impacts of additional second generation and third generation feedstocks. Maybe if you evaluate third generation feedstocks, some of feedstocks you may get in abundance, and that may be more environmental friendly. Although it is difficult that they are environmental friendly as compared to MSW, but of course, in comparison to other feedstocks, you may gain on the environmental impacts. And you have to assess the global scalability of bioethanol production for all the feedstocks, whatever you want to evaluate, so that you can make the wise production decisions. So with this, I come to the end of my this presentation. If you have any questions, any queries, then you can come forward.
Hello, sir. Thank you for such a detailed presentation on LCA.
Thank you.
I have very short query related to the impact version. It seems that you have used some method or a software to get your analysis done. So why is it so specific to use that method? Are there any other available methods which can be used for the analysis?
Oh, you are talking about this impact word plus method.
Yeah.
Okay. See, when we resort to using any method during life cycle impact assessment, we have certain things in mind. First thing is, up to some extent, these all environmental impact assessment are uh, uh, confined to a given region.
Yeah.
Since most of the data has been taken from the this American subcontinent, and for their region, not in terms of your midpoint impacts, but when you normalize them on the human health, or you weigh your indicators for your overall regional comparison, then that thing is built in certain methods. So
Okay.
impact word plus is basically normalized on the basis of American subcontinent. Whereas if you want to assess the global impact, recipe uh, heuristic method is also one of the best methods
Okay.
by which you can normalize and weigh the results on the global level.
Okay.
So it will decide on that. And while you carry out detailed LCA using software tools, normally all these impact assessment methods are openly available. Means you need not to have a license to obtain, use them. So at that juncture, you can resort to you can proceed in two ways. One is you carry out with impact plus method, and then you take the example of some other method like recipe or use stocks or something. Then for those common indicators like eutrophication or your GHG emission and global warming potential, you can just compare the numbers.
Okay.
Normally there must not be much difference in midpoint indicators.
Mhm.
Of course, in endpoint indicators, since it is normalized on a given region, and if you are using recipe type of methods which are globally
Global.
normalized, then that result will make more sense when you want to apply your LCI on a global level.
So you generally what you do is you load all the data from, like, from the plant, how much input, what feedstock we took, what is the output. So all these things are included or entered into the softwares, or like what is the data you incorporate in this?
Uh,
I mean
for
briefly.
that, I need to bring my computer here. I think
Okay,
I
okay.
would better
Okay, okay, fine.
demonstrate to there. I will just tell you
I'm just
qualitatively.
curious.
Yeah, I will just tell you orally. Normally, what we do, as I mentioned, two things here. Yeah, here I have mentioned in inventory that foreground data for LCI are obtained from different studies. I have mentioned two sources.
Yeah.
Now, what is foreground data? I have already mentioned. This is basically, you can say, your lab data,
Okay.
because this biorefinery operation you are doing in your lab, in your facility.
Yes.
So all this foreground data is how much feedstock you are taking and how much acid is required for acid treatment, how much enzyme is required for that. All these data are available with you foreground,
Yes.
because these are your data. But some of the data like your land use, when you are cultivating, all those data are not directly accessible for you. You cannot obtain it except for from these standard databases. So that is called background data. So when we carry out life cycle assessment, we bring a model of your process and then fill our primary data,
I understand. Yeah.
and rest of the secondary data whatever is required, that we obtain from our standard
Source.
databases. You can do it in two ways. If you are having a good software where you can directly put your database into that, process into that, or you can carry out using your Microsoft Excel worksheet. In that you can identify all the auxiliary processes. I can take some time to explain you how it is done on my Excel and how you do it on that.
Okay.
I have a separate slide for that, and I can give you the slide set also for that lecture.
I'll discuss with this.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so you just provide me with your email address. I will send you the slides. Most of the things you will be able to understand from that. Okay. Any other question? Okay then. Thank you very much for, yeah, she wants to ask something.
Uh, Sir, thank you first of all. And sir, I want to ask a simple question.
Okay.
Like in we live in northwest part, and here is basically millets production is high, like pearl millet in Rajasthan, also in Mandargarh. So, what are the possibilities to produce bioethanol by millets?
No, I could not get your question exactly. You mean to say buy some different feedstocks other than these?
Yeah, sir. Millets like bajra.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Bajra and what other feedstocks?
Like ragi, sir.
Huh?
Finger millet.
Okay. You see, all these feedstocks what you are mentioning, including corn and sugarcane, these are all of all from food compartment. Means these are to be consumed by human as food also. So if you are taking out some of that feedstock from that compartment, certainly you are reducing the food security to the human health sphere. So those all are first generation feedstocks. Here also we have seen you can carry out life cycle assessment of bajra also, but you see why it will be more, because in any case for that also you need soil, you need earth, you need fertilization, you will need pesticides and all these things. So all those chemicals again will put more burden on your field operations. You can produce chemically, you can do it, like in the lunchtime we were discussing with Professor Singh, we have process to produce fuel from plastic. Chemically it is very good. Out of 1 kg of plastic you can generate 600 ml of diesel or petrol. But then you, if you look at the whole process, it is not energy efficient. So whenever you resort to or you want to transform some chemical reaction to a process, production process, you have to look for the economy also. It should be techno-economically feasible, plus it should be environmental friendly, only then it will be sustainable.
See, yesterday also you were discussing the first thing is availability of the feedstock. So whatever you are talking like pearl millet and ragi, all those things, I think it is being fed to the animals as of now. Yeah, देखा है मैंने वो काट काट के उसको रख लेते हैं. Otherwise also they make stack of it and use it as fodder. So in that case, it won't be wise. Again, there will be scarcity of the fodder for the animals. So we have to use the material which cannot be used efficiently otherwise. Okay. So in that case only we should go for this particular bioethanol production and all. Right. Okay, so thank you, Dr. Jaswinder, and we really appreciate
Thank you all.
that you spared your time and uh, enlightened our students. And we really look forward to have a hands-on training in future for the
Yeah,
researchers in this
it is
area.
always better. Even it can be an online program if you have ample infrastructure. That can, it can be done that way also. Otherwise, maximum 2 days are required.